Music, dance, theater. It's time to take a seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez. Hear from performers, producers, presenters, and creators who enrich our lives in the performing arts. Who's on stage? Here is Tom Alvarez to introduce you.
Hello, and welcome to On the Aisle with me, Tom Alvarez. My guest on today's episode is Michael Burke Raunick, Managing Director of Summer Stock Stage. Previously, Mike was Director of Choirs at North Central High School. Join me now as I go on the aisle with Mike. Welcome to my podcast, Mike. It's a delight to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
So, I was excited to learn, and when was it that you were appointed Managing Director?
Managing Director,
Summer
yes.
Stock Stage and Eclipse.
Yes.
Okay, let's start out. Tell me when that happened.
So I joined Summer Stock Stage at the beginning of 2024, but previous to this was the choir director at North Central High School. So I finished out the school year during 2024. So I was doing a little bit of double duty for the first half of the year and then full-time with Summer Stock starting in June of last year.
Okay, well, we could talk about North Central's music program for an hour or longer because, I mean, its reputation precedes it, of course. And so that was your world for how long?
I was there for 11 years.
Wow. And so having observed from afar just the reputation, I know that it was, probably still is, one of the top show choirs in the country, or show choirs, I should say, right?
Yeah, no, it is an incredible program. I was so lucky to be there for 11 great years. And yeah, they are still, just this past weekend, I know the choirs both had state finals for concert choir and both did really well. So
tell me the names of the choirs.
Yeah,
there are several.
Yeah, the top group is the Counterpoints, and then there's also the top women's group is the Descants. Those are the two that are kind of out there competing the most. But there's 10 choirs at North Central, and so there's a lot happening there.
Well, you know, fans of Glee, the Ryan Murphy creation that was on television for 4 or 5 seasons. So people who follow that, there's a lot of press about the fact that it's based on his experience, Ryan's experience growing up in the area. And what was his school? And it was based with Carmel.
Right. Well, I know in the first season, the bad guy choir is Carmel, but it's set in Ohio, so it's not actually, but they called it Carmel. And so that's kind of funny. I don't know which school he went to here,
but anyway, he based on the show choir sort of culture. And I'm sure he had North Central in mind because they were a competitor whatever school that it was that he went to. It was either Warren or Lawrence Central.
I think that's
get
right.
mixed up. I get confused about which one. But anyway, I think that introduced America to choral music, which was a great thing, wasn't it?
It was exciting. That show came out right as I was starting my career as a teacher.
Really?
And so, I was in Ohio at the time. But it was a great way to sort of explain to people what I do. You know, it was just like at dinner parties or at events, people, suddenly...
You would say, oh, do you watch Glee?
Right. Yeah. And I would say, that's my life, That's what I do.
So cool.
Yeah.
So up until that point, when you talked about choral music, people had this image of people standing and looking serious in choir rows with books in front of them. But the show choir itself, who started that and when did all that start?
Yeah, I mean, it really started in Indiana. The first ever show choir competition was at Bishop Luers High School.
Really?
So, and it kind of evolved. It was originally called swing choir and was a lot more, people here would think of what Singing Hoosiers does at IU, which is a little more on the normal choral risers, but they do a little step touching and movement. And then it kind of has grown gradually from there, and it went from swing choir to actually be called show choir. But it really did center here in Indiana and then has kind of grown from there.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and Indiana is still sort of the center of show choir in a lot of ways. So we've got, there's not a national system for it, but I think between North Central, Carmel, Zionsville, Center Grove, there's a lot of top-notch groups that sometimes just a regular show choir competition here in Indiana is more competitive than some of the national competitions.
It sounds kind of like our basketball reputation.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
It's like a whole subculture, right?
It is, for sure.
And fans.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the competition part.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So you don't know a name of someone who might be held as the father of?
You know, I think people would say different things. I mean, my predecessor at North Central, Pat Weehee, was one of the sort of key people at the beginning. There was kind of a cohort of choral directors and choreographers that kind of started it in the 80s, early 90s is when it started to really kind of pick up and become show choir more similar to what it is now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why is it that kids are attracted to it?
Well, I think the thing that kids enjoy about show choir is that first of all, it brings in popular music. So that's always a great way to, engage kids in music. And I actually think is something that we need to do more of in music education in school. I think that we sometimes cling a little too much to the classical tradition, and I like to talk about that. I think if Mozart was alive today, that he'd be doing hip hop, because Mozart was doing the most forward thinking, Mozart was pushing boundaries and doing new stuff that was popular at the time, right? And I think we need to do more of that with kids and kind of explore that popular music. So that's number one. But I also think the main piece of it is that it really is a team activity. And so much like sports, it is something where you have 50 kids on stage and every one of them really counts and every one of them really makes an impact. And so they feel that sort of camaraderie of a team. They feel like they get to make a difference. And it's kind of special in that way, different than some of other performing arts opportunities. Like when you're doing a musical, you have people in lead roles and then you have the ensemble. Whereas in show choir, it really is kind of everybody's on a level playing field and really
except
contributes.
For the soloist, though.
Yes, but that's usually like just a short little bit. Sometimes you have a solo that is a big deal, but in show choir, typically...
Yeah, I'm sure you have your divas.
I mean, of course, yeah.
So when you say popular music, that could be pretty broad, but are you speaking of, say, Broadway music or a Great American Songbook?
Yeah, so it's always...
They meld together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always had Broadway, Great American Songbook, jazz.
And so you get to introduce those kids to the Great American Songbook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when they leave high school, they can carry on their love and preservation. I just saw Michael Feinstein the other night. That's why I came to mind, because as you know, he is the ambassador.
Yeah.
And his whole concert, the theme was Great American Songbook, and he talked about their collection, and he talked about his contest. It's not a competition anymore. His presentation of all the 40 high school kids. Many of them have show choir.
Absolutely. There's a lot of crossover there.
And a lot of them went through programs or in programs like Summer Stock. So let's get to Summer Stock. I've been covering it since its inception. And I make no bones about it. I'm just totally enamored with the organization, its mission. I happen to think Emily is brilliant. Her vision, she's made it happen. And I know that just the arts administration part of it, fundraising and everything that's involved in that, she's really made a difference in this community. So let's talk about Emily. How is it that she brought you into the fold?
Yeah, so I learned about Summer Stock very quickly upon moving to Indianapolis and working at North Central.
Quickly, we should introduce it by telling our listeners who don't know what it is its mission? Just basically, what is Summer Stock Stage?
Yeah, so Summer Stock Stage, we are a theater company that is now based at the Butler Arts and Events Center. And we have 3 arms to our company. The part that we founded it with is called Main Stage, and that's for high school students throughout Central Indiana. This year, we had students from 50 schools audition for our show. So that was really exciting. And then we also do an academy program that is for kids in grades 3rd through 9th grade, and they do a 2-week camp with a full musical at the end of it. And then we also have a professional arm called Eclipse that provides opportunities for professional actors, both from our community and from around the country. So this year we have 9 actors in the prom coming up, making their professional debut, alongside some of the principal actors who have Broadway and national tour credits, and it's just an incredible organization.
So you're bringing some of those people back.
Absolutely,
That's a thrill. I'm sure I've seen many of them over the years.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, drop some names of some of these kids in the shows that they're at.
Yeah, so, I mean, in the prom, I am very excited about, we have Adam Shapiro, who actually grew up here, and Adam was actually in the first ever summer stock show, which was Footloose 22 years ago, and I think he was a freshman at Ball State University at that point, and so he did that show and now has been in New York and he's been on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and he was in The Normal Heart on HBO, and he just got done doing Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish off Broadway. He was in the run of that. And so he's playing the lead, Barry Glickman, who is supposed to be a Broadway actor who's coming out to Indiana to, save the town here.
Talk about a meta.
Yeah, but it's very fun for him, who started here and did summer stock when he was a kid, and now
he's a poster boy for the organization.
Absolutely. I mean, it's everything we want to have happen. So yeah, it's fun that he's back and doing it. And then we also have the other adult lead is Lenine Charters, who has worked in Indianapolis a couple of times at Beef and Boards and a few other places, but she was in Mamma Mia on Broadway and has several national tour credits as well. And so they are both really incredible, and it's very fun because we also have these 9 young people who are working professionally for the first time. Some of them are sort of in their first year at college or just a little bit older, and we've only been in rehearsals for less than a week, but they are already learning so much from each other. It opens May 30th.
Okay, May 30th. Okay. How can people get tickets?
They can get tickets online at summerstockstage.com or at the box office at Clues Hall, because the show is going to be in the Schrott Center for the Arts right next door to Clues.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Previously, you've been at the Phoenix Theater. Before that, you were at Park Tudor. That's where I saw many of the shows over the years.
Yes.
Both great venues, of course, and they both get great, solid. I'm sure that your partnerships with both have been extraordinary. They've been cooperative and
absolutely
really helped you grow and the brand and the whole thing, right?
Yeah, so great partners. I mean, Emily started the program at Park Tudor. Emily graduated from Park Tudor, and so I think when it started, it was her just calling in favors from her teachers, and they were a fantastic partner the whole time. And the high school program and the academy program were both at Park Tudor up through last year. And then when we started the professional arm, Eclipse, we were doing that at the Phoenix Theater, who were also an incredible partner and made so many things work for us, including helping us perform outside during the pandemic, which was really
I attended some of
wild
those in the park.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Phoenix was incredible, but we always sort of knew that the Phoenix just isn't really built for larger scale musicals. It's a smaller venue, and there's no orchestra pit. So as we've grown, we knew that we were sort of keeping an eye toward the next step for a facility for us.
You're helping me remember, though, you were limited in terms of how many musicians you could have on stage.
100%.
Now you're going to be able to have larger orchestras?
Yeah. So last summer at the Phoenix, we did The Wedding Singer, which was a fantastic show, but that was the biggest pit we've ever had. We had 8 musicians, and they had to be in the scene shop behind the stage, and we had to sort of pipe in the sound to make that work, which was tough. And we made it work, and it was still a fantastic show. But in the prom, we're going to have 16 musicians in the actual orchestra pit at the Schrott Center. And not only that, but we also have 23 actors on stage in the prom, which is also the biggest show we've ever done.
I just saw the KDO concert, and they had 9 musicians in a chorus on the floor. That is your pit. Yeah.
Yes.
And it worked quite well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, well, and that pit actually goes all the way to the basement level,
it does?
Yeah, that they don't use it that way almost ever.
That.
But we will have it at the basement level.
Are you going to rise
summer.
dramatically?
We are not going to rise dramatically, but we are going to have a whole lot of fun down there.
So what do you like about the Schrott as a physical space?
So, I mean, first of all, it's just a beautiful space.
How many seats?
It's 435 when we don't have seats in the orchestra pit.
Good medium size.
So, yeah, it's a great size. It's very similar to the size of Park Tudor where we had been, and obviously much bigger than the Phoenix. So the first thing that's exciting is that we just have the opportunity to get more people to our shows.
We all know that you really have to depend on support. I mean, you can't
100%.
pay the bills with just tickets, right?
Yeah, we absolutely
get some more people in the seats. That helps.
Need people to be there, and what we really want to do is just, you know, it's not so much about the income from the tickets. It's about getting more people to be connected to the organization and see what we're doing.
Well, then those partnerships with those other institutions that have their own marketing engines and have their own fans and have their own brand, right?
Yes.
So it helps to be with yet another brand. That is huge.
And the Butler Arts and Events Center has just been an incredible partner. We started this partnership in January of this year, and their whole marketing team that markets everything that comes into Clues is also marketing our stuff, which is so exciting.
I get that, yeah.
And they are just supporting us in all kinds of ways.
And then, of course, you bring your brand to them and possibly new traffic. And
well, and
it's the educational thing too.
100%. It's been sort of a magical partnership for both of us, because I think if you've seen, Butler is working on the Gateway project, which is all about building Midtown Indianapolis into a gateway to the rest of the city. Sure. And part of that is creating a Midtown Arts District. And that's actually what this partnership was born of, that we saw their press release about the Midtown Arts District, and Emily and I had a meeting over there and said, hey, how can we partner? And they just right away threw out, well, what if we had you in the Schrott all summer? And it's been just sort of a great partnership right from the beginning, because...
Well, practically, they also need income, too.
Well, and it's working out great because they don't do a whole lot in the Schrott over the summer.
Perfect.
But they have staff in there.
And think about it, Mike. You remember...
Starlight. Yes.
You're the descendant of Starlight.
That's, we would love to be, because we think that was a great tradition that people loved here, and we would love to sort of bring that back and have people...
When,
it's not quite as fun not being outside. But we still think it's going to be really great and a great thing to bring your family to.
Well, I predict someday they're going to find a little room on that campus and build an outdoor stadium for you guys.
That would be great. That would be great.
So you've got a lot of people who know where to park.
Yep.
Where to eat dinner.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So make it an evening when you come to Summer Sack Stage.
It's been a really exciting time. So Emily and I both started full-time, and that's last year, and that's the first time Summer Sack's ever had full-time employees. Emily's always been practically working full-time, but not officially.
And her connections, I know Suzanne Fleener was on the show last week. Apparently she's directing something for you, or
So she is, what we're doing is we're partnering with the Butler Theater Department, actually.
There you go.
And so we are going to be doing SpongeBob the Musical with our high school program.
Yes.
Yeah, we're doing that this summer.
Directing that.
And Suzanne's not directing our production, but she's going to direct the production with Butler Theater.
Oh, I get it.
And so, so we had, before this came about, we already had directors lined up. So, but Suzanne, we've kind of brought Suzanne in on the process, and so we're partnering with Butler Theater, and they're going to use
Diane
our...
Timmerman was part of all of this, right?
Absolutely. She's right in the middle of it.
I've got to get her on this show, because there's that program, it's always been very special.
100%.
Under her leadership, I could see how
she does a great
fit
job
into her vision, how you can all work together.
She's been a great support in making it happen.
When you're talking about education, and we were talking about Summer Sack Season, it seems to me the organization, how long has it been? How old is it?
This is the 23rd season this summer.
So that would say to me there are at least, a couple generations students who matriculated.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that have gone through and we currently have Morgan Anita Wood is currently playing Eliza in Hamilton on Broadway, and she's an alum of the program. We also have John Collins is currently a vacation swing in The Outsiders on Broadway, so he's in there multiple days a week. And I know there's more that I don't know as well.
So, Micah, I know when these things happen, programs like this, it's not unusual for people in other places hear about you and reach out to you and say, like, what's your recipe? How'd you do it? Whatever. Are there people out there, copycats?
I don't know. There are other really great youth musical theater programs around the country. And I know some of our kids, will go to them. But the big difference is that a lot of those programs are very expensive to participate in. And so,
you have to pay to get...
So to be in the high school program for us, we charge an $85 participation fee that just covers their T-shirt, but we also, T-shirt and mic batteries and a few things like that. And
mic batteries?
Yeah, we go through a lot of those,
Well, of course you do.
Yeah, so but yeah, so we charge $85, but we also have scholarship for those, and we also have a program where we buy Uber gift cards for kids who don't have transportation to get to rehearsal.
Wow, that's cool.
So yeah, so I think the thing that really sets us apart, that I am sure there are other programs somewhere in the country, but I'm not really aware of one that has the real diversity that we have. So we do have kids in our program who are from areas of town and schools that don't really have a lot of resources and don't really have a lot of performing arts programs.
Like
and
public high schools in the inner city.
100%. Yeah. So we have kids from the IPS high schools and from some of the less resourced suburbs that are singing and dancing right alongside the kids from Carmel, Zionsville, and everywhere else. Yeah.
So those kids from the 50 schools, I always heard the number like 19 or 20, but now you're at 50.
Tom, they're coming
Does
from...
that come from all over the state now?
Yes, we have kids coming from Lafayette, from Kokomo, from... not quite Bloomington, I don't think, but far on the south side.
It's not unusual.
Definitely kids driving well over an hour every day to get to rehearsal.
I would say Fort Wayne would be a stretch.
Yeah, I don't think we have anybody quite from Fort Wayne yet, but we definitely...
If they could, they would.
Yeah,
right?
I think the reputation's there, and what we find is that I think Emily has always had an eye toward taking care of our artists at every level, and I think that's the thing that sets Summer Stock apart, that a lot of theater companies are really focused on the audience. And not that we don't want our audiences to have a great experience, we do, but I think at the heart of our organization is about helping our artists grow at whatever level that is. So that includes the young kids in, third or fourth grade trying it for the very first time and just giving them support so that they have a positive experience. But then when we get to these high school kids who are really talented, what I like about Summer Stock is that we push them, that we don't let it just be acceptable, that we really try to, make it an exceptional professional level production. And then when we get to the professional shows, we also try to really create a truly professional experience where we have some of these equity contract actors working alongside college kids who are getting paid to do theater for the first time.
I came from educational theater, and I know for me that I went to a school where, it was not unusual for them. Broadway touring people would come through, and they would invite them to talk to us at a workshop to talk about their experience. That stayed with me my entire life, and it helped shape me to where I am now, because of that experience of intention on the part of the educators, very intentional about everything that they did in their programming.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys are very intentional about everything.
We try to be. I mean, I think it's really about making an experience that helps the kids grow or helps the young performers grow at whatever level they are.
Most importantly, you help those kids. I was one of them once. I was a theater kid, a nerd.
Yeah.
I found my tribe.
Absolutely. Yes.
So you help people find their tribe.
100%.
The most vulnerable time of their lives, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot of those kids that what I really liked, when I was at North Central and I would go to those show choir competitions we talked about. And, those competitions, everybody has a really good intention, but also you get competitive, and you can have a little bit of that. But I'll tell you, those summer stock kids, no matter what school they go to, they are just loving each other. And at those competitions, they might be at separate schools competing against each other, but you see them hanging out in the hallways and cheering each other on.
I would have killed to have had that experience, though. I went to a Catholic high school, and, we weren't supposed to hang with the public school kids.
Oh, sure.
I mean, and there were all kinds of reasons for that.
Yep.
It wasn't until I got to college that I discovered that the world was much bigger than my little neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And so that must be a thrill for them.
Well, and I think it's great on both sides. I think sometimes people get caught up in, we're providing opportunities for kids that don't have the resources to do it. But I also think that it's a big opportunity for the kids who do have resources to be reminded that everybody doesn't, but that those people still have value to bring and still help create the unique community that we have.
There are so many similarities to this program, what Feinstein does with the Songbook Academy, because they have a network now after all these years, the 10 years of doing their songbook. These kids, they have group chats. They're still in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
They help each other with their career when they land in New York.
100%. And that is happening with summer stock left and right. I mean, my favorite recent story is... did you get to see The Wedding Singer last year? Yeah. So the lead in The Wedding.
By the way, I didn't have any problems with hearing the band or anything.
Oh well, thank you. We we try to make any situation work, but so the lead in The Wedding Singer his name's Alex Farrow. That was his first professional job, and while he was with us, he sent in a tape for the Dear Evan Hansen national tour, and one of our other actors who was in the show lives in New York and was friends with someone on the casting team for that. And they reached out to her to ask about him, and she said how great he was, and he booked it. So he is just wrapping up being on the Dear Evan Hansen national tour. So his first professional job was with us here in Indianapolis, and then his second professional job was the Dear Evan Hansen national tour.
Is that coming here, or has it been here?
It didn't come here. It went to Bloomington, and it went to West Lafayette, I think. But
have you had any of your kids come here to be on the stage?
I know that I'm forgetting his name, but I know that we had an alum who was in the Frozen tour that was just here a year ago. It was somebody from before my time. And then we also have, just in the last year, 2 young actors who did our Academy program who were in the Les Mis national tour as the child roles in Les Mis, and that tour came here.
So you're developing this sort of mythical history, institutional history that kids who become involved learn about and know about it and make it real, that you can actually make a living from this.
100%, yeah.
Let's go back to the whole thing again, referencing my educational background in theater. I fortunately had teachers who made it very clear from the get-go, we're going to treat you like a professional. Not all of you are going to make a living at this day, but some of you may want to. But we want you to, right now, know that we intend to treat you like you're a professional. That means that you arrive on time, that you know your lines, that you come prepared, and that you treat each other in a professional manner. You value each other's time. You have respect for the work. And I learned those early on, and it was as if, and that's what you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I do think that we operate the whole company in a professional manner. A lot of our crew and our stage managers are all people who work at the IRT, and during the year we have a lot of people that do that. And so we operate, even when it's just the high school kids, we operate it pretty much on a professional schedule and sort of with those expectations. So I love that. But I also love, even we know that despite the fact that we do have a lot of kids who've had great professional success in theater, most of them are not going to do that with their life. But you are absolutely teaching kids about teamwork, about excellence, about holding yourself to a high standard, and about storytelling, which comes into play in so many career paths, so many different walks of life where you need to tell a story, whether you're selling something, whether you are being a leader in an organization. Telling stories is at the center of so many things, and that's really what we do at the center of theater.
That's my story as well. I'm telling you these things just because that's why I admire what you're doing so much, because I've lived that experience, and it brought me to this career that I have, because much of the things that I learned in theater early on laid such a great foundation, including the whole team building thing, working together as a team, collaboration, and kindness, goes a long way. That's one thing we were taught, how important that is, to respect other artists.
Yes.
But not back away from that term, because if you view it through that lens, it's going to make much more of a difference.
Well, and we talk about that a lot. I mean, especially for people going into theater, but it's true for anything. But I always tell kids that if you go to a Broadway show and you look at the program and look at people's bios, you will find that a lot of times people have similar credits, that a lot of them have been in the same shows. And that's not because they're the very best people. It's because they like working with those people.
Yeah.
That the people on Broadway are not the very best. Yeah. They're very good. They're, above a threshold of good for sure. But then once you're above that threshold, it's about being someone that people like to work with, that they can trust to be on time, that they can trust to be prepared, and that you're just, fun to be around. That's who they want to work with. And that's true in any industry. Sure. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be the best.
There's a commercial on television right now. If you've seen it, hire a theater kid.
Oh, I haven't
seen it.
Have
you seen that?
No.
Oh, it's very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what the product is they're selling, but the point is they show B-roll of kids, working as baristas,
sure,
if you will, or whatever. But if you want to get something done, hire a theater kid, because they're trained. And theater kid, what does that mean? It's broad, but people who work backstage, it's not like them.
100%.
Or anybody who has been in a culture where it's taken seriously like that. You learn all these skills that you can use for the rest of your career, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I find that I'm prone to also recommend kids who come from the arts in general, just because of their dedication.
Yeah.
It's so important to them. So tell me about, are you still doing music directing, though, on the side for the organization? You do two hats?
Yes. So I do sort of have two hats. So I'm currently music directing the first production of The Prom this year. And then I also am working as our music supervisor. So sort of working in conjunction with the music directors of each show to make sure they have what they need, and I'm hiring the pit musicians and all that sort of stuff.
Tell me what a music director is. You glossed over it, but tell me.
So when you're producing a musical, you kind of have three primary people leading the creative team. You have the director, who's in charge of the big picture, and at the end of the day, they're really in charge of everything. But their day-to-day job is about telling people where to stand, talking to people about how they deliver their lines, and coming up with sort of the overall vision for the show. Then you have a choreographer who's in charge of all the dancing, and so they create the dancing for the show. And then you have a music director who's in charge of all the music. So my job as music director is in the early part of the rehearsal process to work with all the singers and just teach the notes and make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be singing when, and that it sounds good, and helping them work on that. And then as we get later into the process, I will actually conduct the show and play the piano in the pit, and so work with the pit musicians to also make that part of the show, match what we've been doing.
And how do you find your musicians?
I would say almost all of the musicians that we use for Summer Stock have been playing for Summer Stock since before I was involved in the organization. We have a great group of professional folks who have been doing it for years.
Gig.
Yeah, they do it every summer.
Calendar. They block off.
Yeah, so we have a lot of them are teachers who work during the school year and then play for us in the summer. But we also I've had some great former students from North Central who have majored in music in their instruments and have played in our pits as well.
Around town, like I just heard with Michael the other night, the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra.
Yeah.
There's the Carmel Symphony. There are a lot of orchestras around town that aren't like the ISO.
Yes.
It's a different situation.
Yes.
As long as I've been covering, of course, I'm fully aware that people just have no awareness of the talent pool we have of musicians.
We have a lot of incredible talent throughout this city. Playing in all those ensembles you mentioned, playing in the pit for us. I know there's some incredible musicians who play.
And when big stars come to town, they need pickup people. Like Michael made reference. He gave a shout out to some people in the pit. That he loves working with when he comes to town.
Yeah, we have a lot of musicians
here. Cabarets.
100%.
Yeah, they need a musician, Marilyn May or someone like that.
Yeah,
they're local contacts.
There are a lot of people in town doing a lot more high level work than you realize, because we also have some really significant recording studios here in Indy, and so there's a lot of session musicians who play at those studios.
Safe to say, a music scene, there's the performers, but I'm talking about musicians, available musicians. So
they
can make a living here.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, you got to work at it. It's not, we're not New York City where there's, things happening everywhere you look, but there's a lot more than I think people realize.
I've been interviewing musicians on this podcast, which meant that the algorithm at Facebook is sending me all these musicians.
Yeah.
Cellists and flutists, and you name it. I'm getting conductors now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they figured out that, So anyway, it's wonderful. It's just wonderful, the community to... we have a performance scene that's only growing, and you guys are feeding it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's our goal, is to just continue to grow and be at the center of the arts scene here in Indianapolis.
Okay, let's talk about Eclipse. How did Eclipse come about?
So Eclipse started because Emily was realizing she had this incredible high school program. These kids were going off to college, and then they just wouldn't really come back here because we don't have a lot of professional musical theater opportunities here in Indy. We have Beef and Boards, and that's about it.
IRT's doing one musical
Now they are. Yes, IRT has started doing it, which I love.
Thanks to Ben Hanna.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad they're doing that. But at the time, that was kind of it. And Beef and Boards is a high-level equity theater, and that's not a place where kids can necessarily break in always. And so Emily started it really as something for our alumni almost exclusively. And so the first few shows that she did were targeted toward that younger sort of college age group. But it's grown over the years to now in the prom, we have 4 equity actors, including Ryan Artsberger's in it, who is the artistic director of Indy Shakes. Yeah, as well as some of the folks I mentioned earlier.
I saw him at the Phoenix that he was directing Gender Play.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to be on this podcast.
Yeah, well, you can ask him about it. He's doing a great job. So, it's grown to the point where we now... I said we had kids from 50 schools audition for the high school program. We did online video submissions for Eclipse this year. We had over 500 submissions from 37 states. So people are in from all over. One of the younger leads in the show, May Kaslowitz, is from Massachusetts, and she's here doing the show this summer and is incredible.
Where do you put people up like that?
So we have Butler has been a great partnership. So we have some people in some apartments at Butler. We also have a group of ambassadors who support our program. And so we have a couple of people staying in like carriage houses or,
Very cool.
extra spaces that people have that are here for a bit.
Yeah. So they get a really great experience when they come to town to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of what we pride ourselves on. And I think that is why Eclipse has grown to have this many submissions, is that the people who have come into town to work with us have had a great time.
As we touched upon earlier, ticket sales, they only account for just a fraction. Usually I hear, 30 to 40% at most. But in your case, you're just like everybody else. You depend on corporate donors, individual donors. You depend on sponsorships and whatever. But how has the fundraising been for you all?
So our fundraising has been going great over the last year or so. We were lucky to be awarded a big capital grant from the Alan Whitehill Clues Charitable Foundation that has sort of helped us to fuel our growth as we've made this Butler partnership.
Did you get a Crystal DeHaan gift?
We did, yes. Right. So that was the thing that made the organization take the leap to have full-time staff.
Yay.
Was the gift from Crystal.
Crystal must have seen you at some point.
Yes, so she was a regular, her foundation was a regular donor to Summer Stock Stage over the years. And so, when she passed away, we were one of the recipients of the endowment from her. And so that was the thing that made them take the leap and say, we're going to try and do, full-time staff. And so that helped us sort of hit the ground running And then since Emily and I have been full-time, we've also really seen a lot of individual donor support and foundation support.
Now that you've got the managing director title, I'm sure that you're more directly involved in fundraising, are you not? I bet you and Emily make a great team when you go out there for solicitation.
We do, yes. Well, Emily can be friends with anybody, I think you know her, and so she does a great job with that.
You team tag each other, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we love to work together.
On the other end, and then, you jump in, right?
100. Well, we talk about a lot that I think the reason we make a great team is because we both really believe in what we do. That we don't.
It's that passion factor.
100%. And I find it when I'm writing grants too. Sometimes people say, "Oh, writing grants is hard," and it's a lot of work. But I never find it hard because I see the questions that they're asking me, and I think,
of course not.
We're doing exactly that. I don't need to make something up to answer this question.
The advantage you have if you're an artist and you're also on the business side, or even the artistic side, and you overlap. You and Emily overlap, right? And some of the best arts organizations in town are run by people where you've got a strong team.
Yes.
It sounds like you probably have a really great board president, too. You want to shout them out?
Yeah. So our current board president is Jessica Reckamp, who was our board president a while ago and now is back for round 2. And she does a great job leading our board, and our whole board has really been awesome as we have sort of had this exponential growth over the last year or so.
Can you drop a couple of those names?
So, Brendan Hudson was our previous president and sort of was involved in getting us to be full-time. And then we also have a whole lot of people. Joe Hale, who runs the Speedway Museum.
Show talking about the museum.
Yeah, so he's on our board, and he's great.
He's leaving. Someone else is probably going to snag him.
Yes. I'm hoping he'll still be, in town a fair amount.
Oh, my goodness. No wonder. All that you got.
Yeah, but he's a great support. And then Lauren Stragardis is our vice president, and she's awesome. And Jessica Cooper's our treasurer. I mean, I can go on. They're all great. Yeah.
Now you just remind. Yeah, Joe really bragged on you guys when he was on the show.
Yeah. Well, we so appreciate his support, and he's been a great sort of sounding board as we've grown, and so the board's doing a great job. We've been through a big transition, because even just before COVID, just like 5 or 6 years ago, we really needed a working board who was on the ground and just getting their friends to come to shows. And now we're getting to a point where we're really moving to a more governing board structure and we're thinking big picture about, who we want to be.
I'm sure you've been doing this long enough that you've been able to identify the right skill set for these people too, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so
you got accountants, lawyers, media people, blah, blah, blah.
All those things. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So what does it mean to your career at this point to now have this administrative role in terms of the trajectory of your career?
Well, it's been really great. I mean, I think I had a really interesting career path because I got the job at North Central. I was about 27 years old when I started there. And in a lot of ways, I thought that was my dream job. I didn't really know where to go from there because it's such an incredible program. And it was. I mean, it was my dream job. It was incredible. I had a great 11 years there. But when this opportunity presented itself, I wasn't looking for a different job. It was just I heard that Summer Stock was doing this, and I've always been passionate about Summer Stock, and it seemed like a great opportunity. And, the things that I love about it are I am really passionate about the organization and what it's doing, for artists all over the city. And I love being able to sort of expand what I'm involved in that way. But to be honest, I also really appreciate that it's got a little bit more flexibility than teaching does.
Of course.
So especially, I have an 8-year-old daughter who I love a whole lot and like to spend time with her. And sometimes especially teaching at a big show choir and concert choir program has a lot of demands on your time.
Yeah, weekends.
Yeah,
weekends
absolutely.
And evenings, right?
And I've got demands on my time with Summer Stock as well, here and there. But in this role, I get to sort of pick the times when I want to be really involved, like I am on the prom right now, when I'm there most of the time at the rehearsals. But then I get to sort of take a back seat and just be more of a support for the rest of the team that's working on things at other times.
Yeah, I met your wife, Caro, and you guys were on the show.
Yeah.
And I asked you before we started here how we met. How did that all turn out?
It turned out with a huge success.
Tell our audience what we're talking about.
Yeah, so my wife and I produced a production of Spring Awakening as a fundraiser for the Hoosier Abortion Fund, and that was in response to when Roe v. Wade went away from the Supreme Court. And so it's been, a difficult battle for that, but we thought it was really important. And Emily actually directed, and everybody involved donated their time. We did the final performance at the Cabaret, who was a great partner and also gave us the space at cost. And in the end, we raised right around $80,000 for the Hoosier Abortion Fund, which was a huge, it was way more than we even thought. We thought our reach goal was $50,000, and we blew it out of the water. So,
Mike, was that a concert version of Spring Awakening?
We sort of said it was going to be a concert version, but it ended up being pretty fully staged in the end.
On that little stage?
We did, with a little bit of choreography. They came out into the audience a couple of times. Yeah, it was a great show.
Yeah.
And
so, back to your family, you have one son?
One daughter.
And tell me about her.
Yeah, her name's Ruth. She's 8 years old. She's in 3rd grade at Sycamore School, and she's a little performer herself. She loves to sing and dance and do all that. She's awesome.
So when will she be eligible for summer stock?
Well, she already has done the Academy program. So she did her first show 2 summers ago.
I remember King and I when you had toddlers.
Oh yeah, well that was before her time, yes. But she did the Academy program. She did her first show was Finding Nemo Jr. and she actually got to be Nemo.
Was she able to compartmentalize that you could be her music director and her dad?
So I didn't work on that show. So that was so I didn't. We haven't had to cross that bridge yet. So we'll see how that goes. But
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how can the public, anyone listening to this, how can they help? What can they do to support you?
So the number one thing they can do is just come out to a show this summer. We've got 4 shows. We're starting with the prom we've talked about a lot. Then we're doing Hadestown Teen Edition, which is going to be incredible.
Ambitious.
Yeah,
you guys have never stayed away from it.
We're very excited. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we've got an incredible cast for that. Then the next show is going to be the SpongeBob musical, which is going to be really fun for the whole family in July with the high school kids again. And then the last one of the season is Be More Chill, which is another professional show. And that one's a little less well known, but I really recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
What's it called?
Be More Chill.
I don't know that.
So it's very fun. It's a group of high schoolers, and it centers on a sort of nerdy high school boy who discovers, his friend tells him about a pill he can take that has a nano computer inside it and will tell him how to be cool inside his head. And then, of course,
that sounds like
calamity
fun.
Ensues after that.
Have you cast all these shows already?
We have, yeah.
Okay, how do you do that? Do you have like a general casting and then?
Yeah, so the high school shows, we do an in-person audition that happened on campus at the Schrott.
Mm-hmm.
And
how many turned out?
So we had 165 kids from 50 schools came for that one. And then for the professional shows, we do it by video submission.
Oh, that's right.
Because, they're coming from all over the country. So that happened in February.
Are you satisfied with those online? It happened, COVID made it kind of common.
It's become really the standard across the board that even in New York City.
A lot of money and a lot of stress.
Yeah, even in New York City, people who are in New York, they'll still tell them just send a tape. They only call them in when they get to the second round or something. So it's becoming really standard, and it's hard. It's hard to do it on video because you don't get the full picture of a person on video, and they can do it 20 times and then send you in.
I think you could,
the best take.
Vocally you can kind of tell, but there's something to be said about someone's stage presence
100%
know about it.
But it's a whole different ballgame, and I think
that dimension that you on video, right?
And there's all kinds of strategies people have about saying something cute before they start at the beginning of the video or things like that, and so it is definitely an interesting process.
You've pretty much given us a great picture of summer stock, but for those who've never seen theater in general, tell them why this is a really good introduction.
So this is the best introduction because, first of all, especially this summer, every show is just fun. You're going to have a great time. It's very relatable. So if it's not something you've done before, it's a great way to start. And I feel strongly that if you want to support the performing arts of any kind, supporting performing arts that's being made professionally in your city is the best thing that you can do. So, not just us, go see a show at IRT, go to Dance Kaleidoscope, go see the Indianapolis Symphony. We have some incredible performing organizations right here in town, and we're really proud that we're able to create a cultural landscape here, and it's a great thing to support.
You know, I'm grateful to have this platform, which has expanded my opportunity to have a voice to support the arts. And one thing that I'm talking about very frankly and candidly, without going too far, not choosing sides, but right now we are in a very difficult situation as a country where the people aren't talking to each other. And I believe that the arts are more important than ever to create a dialogue. I often say that when I'm in the theater and a concert hall on the aisle, you always see me, and I never know who's sitting on either side of me, and I don't know their politics. All I know, though, that music and dance and all the performing arts have transformative powers. Not to mention escapism. You can escape all of this craziness.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about all that?
I 100% agree. I think that, you know, the arts are absolutely something that can create common ground. That the thing about the arts is that they're designed to make you feel something, and more than just, you know, reading something on the page or even reading something on your phone. We're creating experiences that are designed to make you feel. And when you're in community and having those feelings together, that's when we can find commonality and find ways to move forward together. And I think it reminds us about our humanity and about the things that we really care about more than some of these surface issues that the politicians like to make us pretend that we care about, you know?
Right. Lastly, tell any parents listening why they might consider the arts as something that they can support and feel good about.
I think absolutely supporting the arts and being a patron of the arts is just a good thing for humanity. As I said, it, you know, it teaches you how to feel, it teaches you how to tell stories, and I don't think there's anything else that you want from your kid than to be able to relate to other people and engage with other people in a meaningful way. And that's, you know, what this experience is about. And I think the other thing is, even if I totally understand, and I had those own feelings myself going into music, that it can be a little scary if you have a kid that wants to go into performing and you think, oh boy, this is, you know, doesn't necessarily
starve,
right, all those things. And, you know, there's some truth to that. I'm not going to say that it's, you know, the easiest life ever for everybody, but I will also say that if we didn't ever have people out there making art, you know, the world would be a really sad place. And it is, you know, one of the most beautiful things you can be engaged in is to make art of any kind. And so I don't think anybody should be afraid of their kid doing it. And the reality is that most people who engage in this are just going to grow up and be a patron of the arts. And that's what we need, is to be together and having these experiences as a community. I think even more in the current times when we're all on our phones and on our tablets and our computers and separated so much, that I think when we have these opportunities to come together and experience stuff together.
There's nothing like live performance, right?
100%.
I don't think we say that enough.
Yeah.
When you're there in community and it's live, it's a once-in-a-lifetime moment, that moment, right?
Absolutely. And it's one of the special things. I mean, you can watch the filmed version of Hamilton on Disney Plus, and it's great, but it's not the same as being in the room and experiencing it happen in that moment. And there's some really special times. Last year in our production of Rent, we had a really incredible performer who sang I'll Cover You. And in the first show, unprompted, in the middle of the show, there was a standing ovation at the end of the song, and people were crying, and I was on stage playing piano, actually facing the audience, so I got to see it sort of happen. And I get goosebumps even talking about it right now. You know, it was an incredible moment. And I think anybody who was there would, I don't care whether you agree on anything else in life, you know you had just an incredible experience feeling what it felt like when the whole audience was moved by that performance. And you can't recreate that in a movie. You can't recreate that without having a group of people experiencing it together.
Well, on that note, I can't think of a better way to sum it all up, and you just did. So, Mike, thank you so much for, I feel like I've gotten to know you better, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the Pet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Come say hi.
All right. By the way, did you give the website earlier?
Yeah, summerstockstage.com.
Okay.
Summerstockstage.com.
People can buy tickets on there and get information about
Absolutely.
your shows.
They can also get it at the Butler Arts and Events Center website. So if they're used to going there, it's there. But we link right to it at summerstockstage.com.
Okay. I'll see you there.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Our thanks go out to our media sponsor, Urban Times. Urban Times is a monthly news magazine which serves as the official neighborhood newsletter for 16 Indianapolis neighborhoods, offering news about development, arts and entertainment, and from the business community.
Who will take center stage on the podcast next? Your seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez awaits. Follow Tom on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure to visit tomalvarez.studio. Watch Tom every other Thursday on Lifestyle Live on Wish TV, and make sure to listen every week here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.